Okay, hi, it's me again. Last video we looked at drawing some squares, drawing lines using the line tool, and we used some grid inputs. Pretty pointless really, but it's there. You occasionally might want to use that. We used absolute coordinate inputs with a Cartesian system. So that was coordinate x comma y, typing into the command window, and the moderately useful tool was relative coordinate inputs at comma x comma y. Pretty useful, the relative coordinates. I find it useful anyway. Let's have a look at doing the same job in a slightly different way using polar locks, maybe some e-tracking. First thing I'm going to do is get rid of this origin marker. That's view, display, CCS icon. I'm going to untick on, get rid of that. We might draw to the grid system when possible. Quite often it doesn't really matter. This is what we call model space, and when we produce a drawing, we'll produce a drawing on one of the sheets, so it doesn't really matter where you're drawing in model space, but for simple stuff we might draw from the origin, from 0, 0. We're going to draw some lines from anywhere, but we're going to draw them at a known length. So starting anywhere, left click. I have a polar lock in several locations. There's a polar lock at some angle, and I've got the orthogonal turned on. So this polar radial lock is quite useful. At the moment I know my settings are every 45 degrees. If I come down to this button, middle button at the bottom, polar, if I right click, the same as all of these buttons at the bottom, go into my settings, takes me to the appropriate page in the user preferences, and I can see 45 degree increments for polar lock. If I change that to 15 and just OK that, things start to get maybe already out of control. Too many locks to be able to figure out. That one I think is 45 degrees, 30, 15, 0. Remember, with polar coordinates, this is 0. We're always moving counterclockwise. You might say anti-clockwise, but counterclockwise is a better acronym, CCW, where we clockwise CW. So 15 degrees, 90 degrees, 180, 270, 360 or 0. So we've got our polar lock turned on. I'm going to get a bit of control of that. Settings, that's a right click settings, and I'm going to switch back to 90. I just want my horizontals and verticals. We're drawing a square. What is great about this locking business, if I want a 50mm line or 50 unit line in this direction, once I'm on the lock I can just type in 50. See that typing into the command window. That pop-up was nothing to do with us, by the way. It was just something my machines decided to do. If I want a vertical line 50mm, I can type in 50. Notice my command window, bottom right corner, 50, return key. I can 50, return, and I can zoom in and just show you something else. I can close the square. Really important that we close lines correctly, especially if you're manufacturing directly from this data or something. Really important you don't leave gaps and you don't extend lines past where they're meant to end. But if you notice on this video, I can snap to the end point, and if I hover there it tells us the end point of this line, and that's my E-snaps. And we go into the settings, right click, and we can see what E-snaps I've got turned on. So end point is turned on. I could snap to the midpoint. We'll have a look at that one. We can snap perpendicular to something. We can produce a tangential relationship almost between a line and an arc or two arcs. We can snap to the quadrant of a circle. If you don't recognize this terminology, the symbol is really showing you what we're talking about, but it might be worth looking into the glossary or typing the word into Google or something and doing a bit of research. So I'm going to snap to the end point. I'm going to press the escape key to finish with my line tool. The escape key or the return key works in the same way. And we have a 50mm square. If I click on a line, we get told the sizes. So that's quite good. Let's have another go. I'm going to draw my square exactly vertically in alignment. So what we've got on screen now is something called E-tracking. We're not snapping to the end point, but I want my new start point to be exactly horizontally aligned with the point I had on hover before. So if you hover over a point, wait till the snap indicator it shows, and then drag out horizontally or vertically. I've only got 90-degree E-tracking turned on. But there's a line. I'm going to draw any old line, press the escape key, press the return key to restart the line tool. Return key always reactivates the last used command, and I'm just going to draw another line of any length. One way of drawing particular shapes might be to use the modify toolbar in conjunction with the draw toolbar. So we just produce a line from the draw toolbar, and using the modify toolbar offset, I can construct some new lines. So we're going to use offset and trim as a technique to produce a shape. Really quite useful way of drawing. So offset, what do we do? Always read the command window or the command line. The system is asking me for a distance. I'm going to type in 50 and I'm going to press the return key. The system is asking me for a source entity. What is it that I want to offset by 50? I want to offset that one by 50, and now the system is asking me, always check the command window, for a side. Do I want the new offset to be this side or this side, above or below? In this case I want below. I can select another source entity, or I can exit. If I've got multiple 50mm offsets, I can just keep clicking and clicking and offsetting multiple items, all one at a time. So I can select this line and offset this side, and you can see my square, but it's a bit untidy. A couple of things we could do there. We could manually press escape from the tool. We could manually select the line, grab the end point and reposition it. That works, no problem. Press the escape key to deselect that line. Or we can use the modify tool, trim, which is great. What do we want to do with this tool? Again, read the command line, specify the cutting edges. Where do I want to cut along? Well, I want to cut these two extended lines away at this line. So this is a cutting edge. I need to trim away this part of the line to this line. So this line is my cutting edge. So we've got two cutting edges. If I'm happy with cutting edges, I press return, and the system now asks me, read the command line, specify segments to remove. Well, I want to remove that piece, and that piece. I'm going to press the escape key to exit the tool, and if we check, I have 50mm lines in my property window. If your property window isn't there, I'm going to close it just to show you. If you haven't got a property window, a single click doesn't show you anything. Double click and it brings out the property window, tells you all about that item. So there's two more techniques for drawing lines. We used polar tracking, which changed the settings of the polar lock with this button, and we typed in a distance whilst having the lock in place, the vertical and horizontal lock. And with this method we just drew two lines of unknown length and then used the offset tool and the trim tool to tidy up what was there. So there's a multitude of ways of drawing shapes in AutoCAD or Draftsight, as this is. Either counting spaces on the grid as our previous video, using the absolute coordinates, not very helpful really, using relative coordinates, yeah, pretty helpful, and I tend to use relative coordinates a bit, using e-tracking and just typing in lengths, really useful. And I find myself coming to this method more frequently, using the offset and trim for a simple square. Yeah, it's pretty it's a lot of effort for a pretty simple shape, but when you start drawing something more complex, offset and trim is really quite useful. So again, have a go, re-practice using the coordinate systems and practice this method. Find out what works best for you. I know what works best for me, but you guys, have a practice, learn what's right for you. Yeah, see you next time. Thanks.